All right, I said in the last video that we have some bugs with collisions in our game, and I've been avoiding them by not hitting walls, but let me show how this works. So I'm going to take my blue player here, and I'm going to accelerate. And this is going to be perhaps very difficult to actually see in the video. You're probably going to have to use your own game and kind of to really get a feel for what's happening. But I'm going to crash into this wall here, and I'm holding down the left arrow key, and I want to try to move the other direction. And so I hold the right arrow, and actually I can probably adjust the friction a little bit to make it more obvious here. So I'm going to go to the game. I'm going to slow this back down to 0.1. Right, I'm going to go hit the wall. And so I hit the wall and I'm holding the left arrow, and I'm going to stop and I'm going to hit the right arrow right now. And it takes a while. All right, once I hit this wall, it takes a while for between me hitting the right arrow and my player actually moving to the right. And what's happening is that I'm trying to change when I'm moving to the left, right? My speed gets all the way up to 5 by adding 0.1 every single time. And when I want to turn to the right, I have to add 0.1 in the other direction. And the problem is the moment I hit the wall, right, my velocity is still technically -5, and I have to add 0.1 a whole bunch of times just to get back to 0 before I can start accelerating in the other direction. So it feels a little bit weird because really when I hit the wall, my velocity should be 0 right now, but it's actually -0.5 even though I'm touching the wall. So it takes extra time to move in the opposite direction. Again, I think this is probably very hard to see in the video, so you should, in your own game, test by hitting a wall and then trying to change directions right away. And you'll see that there's too much of a lag there. And so what this means is we're just going to go to the check walls, right? The check walls function. And when you are moving to the left or right and you hit a wall, right, what should happen is that you should stop. So I'm just going to say self.vx is equal to 0 when I hit a wall, right? And I don't need to put it in both places, right? Here, I already know that I have hit a wall in the horizontal direction, so that should stop me. And I'm going to do the exact same thing with in the vertical direction, and I'll just say self.vy is equal to 0. All right, and let's test this out. So I'm going to accelerate into the wall here, and this works a lot better, and I don't really have a lot of room to test, but the same thing happens when I move up and down, right? You can tell that I'm actually stopping now when I hit the edges, right? Hit the edges of the wall. All right, so that fixes the problem with the walls. I actually still have the exact same problem with the edges of the screen here. If I try to turn around, it takes several iterations of the game loop to get my speed back to 0 before I can start accelerating in the opposite direction, and that happens on all edges of the screen. But it's the exact same concept. So this check edges, I will leave that up to you to go ahead and figure out how to set the horizontal and vertical velocities back to 0 when you hit edges of the screen as well. But instead, I just want to show you one more thing that I think might be kind of fun. When I hit a wall, I set the velocity, and this is totally optional, but I just set the velocity immediately to 0. But just playing around, I was thinking, what if I took the velocity and I just negated it? So I'll just do times equals -1. And so this will just take the velocity and flip it to the opposite direction. And we get kind of a neat effect here. So I'm going to hit the wall and I bounce, right? So if I hit the wall with a velocity of 5, my velocity immediately turns to, or if I hit the wall velocity of -5, then it immediately turns to 5. And I get this neat kind of bouncy effect. And let me go around to the other side. Okay. And maybe that's just a little bit too bouncy. So let's try 0.5. right? And you get a little bit less bounciness, but it gives us something else to play with, right, in the physics department that might be kind of fun. Um, so I'll do the same thing in the y direction. Again, this is totally optional. If you want to just set it to 0 because that's how you want your game to play, then do it that way. All right, so anyway, just trying to give you another idea for something to play with. Also, all right, I'm having another one of those magic number situations where I have the 0.5 variable in multiple places. And so I'm not going to do that in this video, but something you should think about is this should probably be a constant or at least a variable somewhere else instead. So maybe, you know, you could use a bounciness constant. And so if you're specifying your physics up here, right, you could make a bounciness variable and set it to whatever you want it to be. So I've got 0.5 right now, and we could refer to this every time, right? And this is if you want your friction and bounciness to be consistent across all games. Or maybe you want to treat it more like we did with the friction, and let's make it a, where is it? And let's make it a variable inside the game class. All right, so just do whichever one is appropriate for your game, and I'm going to end this video right now.